Imagine being hit by lightning once. Now imagine being hit by lightning not once, but 4 more times in your lifetime. No, neither can I. Let's get into the story. Hi, welcome to my channel. If you are new here, so am I. Welcome, and together, let's do this. Today's story is about Walter Summerford, who might be one of the most unluckiest men to ever walk the planet, depending on your perspective, that is. But to me, he might be just about the unluckiest man to ever walk the planet, who had the misfortune of being hit by lightning not once, not twice, but more than that in his lifetime. We'll find out as the story progresses in terms of just how many times. Oh, I already said it in the beginning. Now, I know a boy in my childhood who was struck by lightning not once, but twice in his lifetime. And we're talking a childhood, so we were still very young at the time. And I gotta tell you, I never spoke to him again after that. Probably gonna sound horrible, but I never spoke to that man. I never spoke to that boy after that. I just did not want Mother Nature forming any kind of association. I don't associate with lightning at all, so no lightning. No lightning for me. Thank you very much. I can't. No. My partner will tell you that I am absolutely terrified of lightning. He doesn't think it's a big deal. For me, it is. It's a huge deal. Every time lightning comes on, I recoil and I hide into the deepest, darkest. I hide when there's lightning. That's how scared I am of it. Some people might think it's irrational. I might say it's irrational. I think that's the thing about fears. They might be irrational to some people, but to the person, they are very, very real. Okay. Anyway, yeah, so moving on with the story. So we will start with the origins of Mr. Walter Summerford. Walter Summerford was born in 1882 in the state of Georgia, USA. Little facts about the state Georgia, apart from being the mecca of filming studios nowadays. The state was founded in 1732 and is named after King George II of Great Britain. It was also the last of the 13 original colonies making up the USA at the time. It was the last of those 13 colonies to be founded. And the state is the #1 producer of pecan nuts in the entire world. That part, it's thrilling. I love me some nuts. Anywho, the year is 1918, where the story picks up and where we meet Walter, which is when all this began for Walter. A year famed for a lot of historical events. World War I is one. The Spanish flu is another one. The Representation of the People Act 1918 was passed to reform the voting system in Great Britain and Northern Ireland. So essentially, women were allowed to vote for the first time ever. Not all women. It was 30 and above or 30 plus. So not all women, but it was definitely the start. And a significant start at that as well. The Afrikaner Broederbond, later renamed Broederbond, the Afrikaner Broederbond was formed. If you're wondering what that is, think South African nationalism. One of its aims was to gain control of the South African government at the time. And by 1947, the organization had control of the South African Bureau of Racial Affairs. And it was within this that the concept of racial segregation was born and nurtured, otherwise known as apartheid. Yay. So yes, the organization achieved a lot in terms of its political objectives. Do you know what else happened in 1918? Mississippi State became the first state to ratify the 18th Amendment of the US Constitution, authorizing alcohol prohibition. Hence the moonshines were born. And of course, World War I came to an end, which is where we find Mr. Walter, who was a major, who happened to be a major in World War I, and he was stationed in Belgium. We find Mr. Walter in 1918 doing war things. The story goes, Walter was out and about, going about his business, as most people do, going about their business, not expecting anything sinister to happen, whilst riding a horse. We can only speculate here, but it was perhaps to meet his superiors or subordinates, to discuss progressive war tactics and strategy. Who knows? Who knows? We don't know. Whatever his reason, he was out and about, minding his own business and riding his horse, trotting along on his horse, completely impervious to the gathering clouds and rumbling skies, when all of a sudden the rumbling got louder than it had been before. Then proceeded a huge crack, almost like a sound of an enormous explosion. and it was quickly followed on by a blinding white flash. Then, an electrical current surging through his body. He had been struck by lightning. Okay, so just to put it into perspective, or just to contextualize, the sun's surface area is 5,500 degrees Celsius. How they've measured that, I have no idea, but scientists are amazing, amazing people. Anyway, the boiling point of water is 100 degrees Celsius. And I would know, I burned myself a couple of years ago, actually, when trying to fill up one of these. The lightning temperature reaches 30,000 degrees Celsius. So that's ridiculous. So yeah, this poor man was struck by that. That's crazy. I've never been hit by lightning, and please let that not happen, please. But anyway, that's what was surging through his body. So in terms of being struck by lightning, one netizen described it as follows. Imagine a solid, molten, churning core of fire and heat just sitting at the center of your body. And then from this central core, there is a continuous pulsing, throbbing pain. It felt like being on fire inside out, and there isn't anything that can be done to help, said this one person. Another person described their experience as follows. It was as if something extremely heavy had dropped on my body. I felt hot and cold at the same time. I felt heavy and dazed. Then came the smell of singed flesh. I looked down at my right arm and I saw that it was burning and blistering. So yeah, there's so many stories of people being struck by lightning and living to tell the tale. And it seems like in terms of describing the feeling, for the most part, it varies from person to person. But the after effects is where a lot of the commonalities are shared. And those are just the people that survived. So yes, lightning is a very, very powerful force of nature. And it was this powerful force of nature that knocked Walter instantaneously off his horse. And it resulted in a horrendous fall. Which, side note, falling from a horse can have its own horrible consequences. Like divorced from this, so falling off a horse paired with the fact that he was struck by lightning, it resulted in a horrendous, horrific fall that left him severely injured. So yes, from this incident, he was sadly and subsequently left paralyzed from the waist down. And unfortunately, that put an end to his military career, as he was now relying on a wheelchair for mobility and getting around. It's important to remember that the year was 1918. So yes, he ended up having to retire from the military. So he retired and he moved to Vancouver, Canada. Love that city. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful city. Where he began the onerous process of rehabilitation. He put in the work, and that included a lot of it being the mindset itself, because a huge part of being a healthy individual is the mindset. So yes, he put in a lot of hard work to try and recover as best as possible. He managed to create a life for himself around his newly found circumstances, and he made the best of his situation. He even met a fellow lady love, got married, and had children, which is the ideal for a lot of people, the nuclear family, so to speak. So before Walter was struck by lightning and became paralyzed, he had been an avid sports person. After the accident, I guess you could say he adjusted and adopted. And one of the sports that he fell in love with was fishing. And he got very, very good at it. He got so good at it, in fact, that he got into competitive fishing as well. And yes, he enjoyed doing that for the following 6 years. Which brings us to 1924. Again, it was another day where Walter was enjoying his newfound love of fishing in a river that he frequented for a sport of lovely, leisurely fishing. And he had been out that day and he'd been fishing for some while or for some time, and he decided that, you know what, I need a rest for a little bit. So he took a moment's rest, and he was resting under a magnificently sprawling, leafy, enormous tree, which any other day would be fine, but not today. So he's sitting there resting underneath this huge tree, taking a breather, when all of a sudden, once more, he hears a huge crack. Then a lightning bolt quickly surges through the tree that he happens to be sitting under. Now, I don't know if there was any other trees there, but somehow this tree, the one that he's sitting under, was the one that got hit by lightning, not any other tree. And as a result of being there, the lightning surges through him as well. This man was once again struck by lightning, unfortunately. Which, come on, what? As a result of this, do you remember how I said he was paralyzed from the first lightning strike, from the waist down? Well, after this one, the entire right side of his body became paralyzed also, further reducing his mobility, unfortunately. So he once again went through another bout of rehabilitation to try and recover as best as possible. But there's a twist. Astonishingly, not long after the second strike, he made a remarkable, if not borderline miracle, he made a remarkable recovery. And physically, he was doing better than he had been doing after the first lightning strike. This man was doing so good that, in fact, he regained the use of his legs and he was able to walk again. How that happens, I don't know. So I guess the argument or the discussion is that the second lightning strike was somehow able to reverse the effects of the first lightning strike. Maybe, somehow. Who knows? Stranger things have happened on Earth. So yeah, this poor man managed to fully recover from Mother Nature's personal attacks against him. Life moved on and he carried on living his life, including partaking in his favorite sports that he had been doing before the first lightning strike that left him paralyzed. So yeah, he's living his life now and doing Walter things. So now the period is the early 1930s. We have Walter once again trying to go about his business and just exist like most of us. He was out for a walk at his local park, just enjoying some fresh air, breathing in less fumes than we probably do right now. Overall just enjoying the fresh air and taking in the sights, listening to the birds, just existing and enjoying his day in general. Once again, impervious to the skies above him. The clouds quickly gathered once more, precipitated by mild rumblings from a distance, he probably thought, when all of a sudden, that all too familiar, haunting, loud crack, precipitated by a bright white flash, Walter found himself on the ground again. He had been struck by lightning for the third time. This latest one proved to be more severe than the previous two lightning strikes on him. It would prove to be the last time that he ever walked, as he was completely paralyzed from the neck down after this one. It's said that no amount of rehabilitation would have improved his condition. As a result, he was left bedridden, unfortunately. And sadly, that's how the remainder of his life would be. And he sadly passed away 2 years later. He was reportedly laid to rest at Mount View Cemetery in Vancouver, Canada. So you're probably thinking that's the end of it right there, right? You'd be wrong. It was not the end of it. Not long after this man's funeral and burial, Mother Nature's diary cleared up for this poor man once more, just to pay him another visit one last time. You hope it wasn't like just making sure or stay down kind of thing. But yeah, his gravesite was hit and struck by lightning. Now, I'm sorry. At this point, I don't know how much of an accident I can call it, because it feels intentional on Mother Nature's part. Either that, or this man is just perpetually unlucky, which is a scary thought. But anyway, Walter was finally laid to rest. This poor man was finally allowed to rest after just one more time to check if it actually is the case. So yes, he was resting. So how real is this story, you ask? So, well, it's been said that the chances of this occurrence happening are not completely impossible. I will say that in all my research, I didn't find one single person that this has ever happened to this many times. I found a lot of stories about people being struck by lightning once, rarely the second time, apart from the boy that I knew, but not once where this has ever happened to somebody. But then again, it could be just they never spoke to the media about it. So there's that. So who knows? But anyway, something that would have increased his odds of this happening to him is if he had higher than normal levels of silver in his body, as silver has the highest electrical conductivity of all the metals. Now, as far as I'm aware, he didn't have ageria. If you're wondering what ageria is, it's a skin condition that one gets from excessive exposure to toxic levels of silver, and it turns the skin blue, like all over the whole body. You look blue. One looks blue when they have been exposed to that much silver. So yeah, as far as I'm aware, he did not have that. But then again, silver has a lot of medical uses. It's reportedly used in water purification. It's also used in wound dressing and wound care. It's used in surgical appliances, etc., etc., and so on. So this man was in hospitals quite a lot from these lightning strikes. So who knows? I think another theory is that it's possible that his body became more conductive after the first lightning strike. Perhaps. I like to think not for this one because it's a scary thought. It's a very, very scary thought to think that you can be a great conductor of electricity whilst trying to exist in life. No. So I would hope no, this one is not true. Who knows though? But more than likely, this seems like a giant hoax. As interesting as it is a long running hoax that's been written, rewritten, and posted online that we tend to believe it and take it as fact. So I'm going to go ahead and park myself on the hoax side of it because the reality and possibility of all of this being true is absolutely terrifying, quite frankly, for me personally. So yes, no, please. Let's not make this a thing at all because no, the thought of being hit once is bad enough. So not only that, but the evidence piece of lightning having struck his headstone, which is in the form of a photograph, the years are not adding up on it. If you look closely, the years are simply not adding up. The headstone reads 1912 when this man is supposed to have passed in the 1930s. So yes, it's a weird one. Whatever you believe, whatever the real story is, I found it very interesting and hopefully you did too. And that brings us to the conclusion of this tale. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to me. Thank you, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.